One of the most common themes that I work with, both one-on-one and collectively, is rejection. I felt compelled to do a bit of an impromptu ramble today on my channel about the theme of rejection, as I've been working with it so much with clients in my videos as well as in my own life, and I feel that I've learned a lot about rejection as we've gone into this period of time of Jupiter and Sagittarius. I feel like a lot of things have clicked into place and a lot of healing has happened for myself, and I've learned a little bit more about it, and I feel more able to speak on it as a whole. And what I'm ultimately hoping to do with this video is to sort of change up some of our deep-seated fear towards this whole theme, the deep fear of rejection, the deep fear of not being accepted in some, a relationship or program or work or whatever it is. And I want to really give you a sort of new idea of what rejection can represent and a new idea of how you can manifest and channel rejection into something more healthy and benevolent into your life. And the first thing that I want to make clear moving into this video is the connection between rejection and insecurity. Oftentimes, when we experience rejection in our lives, we are amidst a chapter of insecurity and instability. We're not feeling confident in our projection. We're not feeling confident in what we represent. There's a connection between representation and rejection as well, because oftentimes when we're rejected, we feel that what we want to represent is being taken away from us, and we're not allowed to represent and stand in our true skin. So I want you to think about rejection and insecurity. I want you to think about how, if you're feeling rejected, or how if you're not being accepted by someone, why is it so necessary and mandatory that you represent what it would be if you were accepted? It's almost like if you're not accepted by someone else's will, you're not good enough for yourself. And oftentimes it's because in your current present, you're not feeling good enough, or you're not feeling adequate. You're not feeling like you can live up to the measures of other people, or perhaps the measures of yourself. And that's usually when rejection does come into your life, because the universe kind of wants to signal a wake-up call. It's kind of like, okay. It's okay to want what you want, but it's perhaps not okay to not be able to live with what you have now. And so you will see rejection come into your life as a means of teaching you how to thrive in the present moment. So that kind of triggers the next layer of rejection, which is escapism and avoidance. So we've gone through insecurity a little bit, and we might talk a little bit more about it later. But after you've seen insecurity and rejection, then you usually see avoidance and escapism and rejection. So what are you trying to avoid? What are you trying to build over the top of? What like bandage are you putting on a wound that cannot heal without air? This is very prevalent in relationship rejection, the themes of avoidance and escapism. A lot of the time when we want to be in a relationship with somebody and they turn us down, and that becomes a big deal, or when we've been in a relationship for a long time and we get rejected in some way, it's really hard to cope with that rejection when what this person in our life covers up is desperately needed to be avoided. So oftentimes you can see that when a relationship starts to go south and there's a fear of rejection, you start to love this person even more, or you start to try to really fix the relationship only when it's too late, because there's sort of a desperate fear of having to face what exists in the absence of this relationship or person. And I would urge you, if you're on like the edge of a breakup, or if you're like really trying to go against any type of rejection in a relationship, really trying to make something work no matter what, I would urge you to think about, what am I avoiding? What am I trying to escape from by rejecting this rejection in my life? What does my life look like without this person? What does my life look like without this job? And why am I so desperately afraid of being rejected by this person or this job? Do I have to face that trauma from a few years ago? Do I have to face a new type of budgeting system? Do I have to face a feeling of lack, whether it be the lack of affection or the lack of money? And why am I so afraid of those things? Because oftentimes what you don't give yourself when you're in a moment of fear of rejection is the ability to see that even with this money, with this affection, when rejection is prevalent in my life, I still face the same amount of pain as if they were gone. And that's what people never give to themselves when there's a fear of rejection, or when rejection is trying to be avoided. They never give themselves any type of acknowledgement or validation that the presence of this job or the presence of this person is creating an equal amount of discord in your life, or perhaps more than if you were to lose them. Rather, you take those things and you breathe them in and you let them create an adrenaline rush, and there becomes this sort of addictive cycle of stress where you also don't want to let go of that. And you start to realize that, okay, if I lose this person or I lose this job, I lose my source of adrenaline stimulus. And then I sort of have to go through withdrawals with that too. So this is a lot of the reason why rejection becomes such a strong fear in us, because it represents having to face what we're scared of. It represents having to realize our own addictive cycles as people. You know, also difficult relationships and difficult careers, difficult health problems. They can all sort of lead us into addictive cycles. You know, we need substance to get away, or we need, you know, whatever it is that distracts us. I've also noticed in people who have a strong fear of rejection that there is, on one hand, a strong fear of stillness, yet also a strong fear of motion. And this inner flux and turmoil generates a lot of rejection in these types of people's lives. I've been there, I've broken this. You will see that this type of person who is quite desperately afraid of rejection, on one hand, needs stimulus always in their lives. They're kind of afraid of not having anything to do in a day, or afraid of just sitting with themselves, or afraid of just being alone and still. Yet also, they have to prioritize time for this. And I want you to think about that for a second. And everyone deals with this at some period in their lives, some more than others. I want you to ask yourself and see this. Like, I want you to really see this. Like, okay, I'm really scared of being alone, or I'm scared of being still, or I'm scared of not facing other people, not having a lot of people in my life to distract me. Yet also, I have to make time for that. And I also am afraid of not having it. And you'll see this kind of go across the board of these sort of polarized, volatile fears, and fears of lack ofs, and like fears of having these same types of things. This is a little bit confusing, I know, but it's really important to see, and I'm trying to articulate it in a way that makes the most sense. Basically, it's an insatiability where you can never have enough or too much. You can never have, it's like never in the perfect amount. It's sort of like a seasoning or something. And you have like these really high demands. People who experience rejection, often times their demands are too high. Their demands upon themselves are too high. Their demands upon others are too high. And they set themselves up for it in that way because they create an expectation within them in their lives that is not possible to receive. So a lot of things become rejection by default. And with each rejection, the demands build higher. So yes, you see the extremely successful entrepreneur who has like many $1-million businesses, and they create a new one and it only makes $500,000 and they feel rejected because they didn't achieve their goal. You see the person who has this really incredible, strong relationship. They're going to get married. They've been dating for a long time. They've done everything pretty much right. But because this person that they're in a relationship with forgets to acknowledge them in the way they needed one day, they automatically assume they're being cheated on and feel rejected. And there becomes this desperation to check all the dots, or to check all the task boxes. Like, you have like this sheet, this like chore sheet every day of all of these validations that you have to get, or all of these accomplishments you have to meet. And if one does not get checked, it's automatic rejection. And it becomes like, we get into inner child stuff here, where like the inner toddler starts to lash out and have a temper tantrum over not receiving something. So yes, we can go back into childhood, we can look at all of those wounds, but it's really not the point of this video, because that's not always something that can be that easily fixed. It can for some people, but truly we're adults now, and we have to sort of think about this in a conscious, complex way. Not a complex way, but it has to be thought of in conscious terms. You know, we can't expect mommy or daddy at this point in time to come in and solve our problems for us. So we have to kind of step into the place of our own problem solver, which sort of brings me into the next theme of rejection. People who experience rejection often have many, many, many problems to solve. Again, there's like a taskmaster type of energy that introduces itself as well within people who have a strong fear of rejection. But yet there's never, for some reason, a want or desire to look at overarching problems. So oftentimes you can see that these people continue cycles of extreme stress, or they see like, okay, yes, I am in an extremely abusive relationship or an extremely abusive family, but I'm not going to do anything to solve that. I'm going to like solve these like millions and millions of problems that come up as a result of it. I solve all those problems, but I don't look at the overarching problem. There's a myopic nature about people with strong fear of rejection, because and it's sort of chicken or the egg here, and it gets really big circle. It's like they're kind of afraid to solve problems that are really big because they're afraid that they'll be unsuccessful. If they're unsuccessful solving the big problem, then they feel like they will be stuck with no options. People with fear of rejection have an extreme fear of lack of options, yet they trap themselves in situations that take options away. Again, we're getting into flux, we're getting into polarity, we're getting into volatility themes for sure. Which pushes us straight into motivation, okay? When you see polarity, when you see volatility, that is directly connected to the motivation energy line, because oftentimes when people go through, a trauma representing volatility, or like they're with someone who's like extremely narcissistic or someone who's very volatile, they start to see that they're quite trapped by that energy, and then they have to become motivated to get out of it. They have to get motivated to rise above. So what can happen is after you have an experience like that, and you get out of it, you start to feel safe and you start to realize, okay, wow, that was a lot of motivation. I was an extremely motivated person when I was going through that trauma. I need trauma again to find motivation. Motivation is an incredible energy. It is something that is really good, like very like solar plexus powerful, very heart powerful. So it's not a bad thing, but I will say that motivation does tend to spur rejection. Okay. And it's actually a really good thing, because I don't want to get ahead of myself here, but I want you to say that if you're wanting to get motivated in life, or if you're wanting to get successful, if you're wanting to like be that person who's like rising up, having that upward mobility, expect a bit of rejection. You really do, because when you manifest and establish motivation and success and rising and doing well into your life, the universe is very happy. People start to do really well when they get into that pure state of high vibration. But what happens is that anything in your life which threatens to take that state of happiness and motivation away from you has to fall away. The tricky part is oftentimes we don't know clearly what that is. So when rejection starts to introduce itself into your life, you need to be able to look at it and realize that this is the universe trying to support me in rising higher. Oftentimes we find false attachments to things which threaten our ascension or things which threaten our happiness, because we are in a polarity type of paradigm. So oftentimes, for really bright lights, there are very dark shadows. So you start to do really well in your life, and you start to all at the same time feel like a strong sense of like ominous, whoa, this could be taken away from me type of energy. And the most dangerous thing when you're stepping into power is to convince yourself that rejection is a negative thing. Because you might have seen from the title of this video, rejection is actually protection. Rejection is one of the universe's many ways to protect you from something that you can't see is an attachment of your own that takes from yourself. Like, yes, maybe this person is very attractive, and maybe this person makes you feel a way that you've never felt before, and that's really beautiful. That's really grand and really nice and not bad. It's sometimes not bad to be in a relationship with someone, even if it's doomed to fail or something. But the fact is that something, if you're experiencing rejection, something within you at a soul level prioritized your own rise above the ashes, prioritized your own motivation and your own desire to see yourself go higher over the comfortability and temporary easiness that this person, job, experience, circumstance represented during a fleeting moment. So at the very root of rejection as a concept and theme, we actually get into interpretation. How you're interpreting things in your life, how you're interpreting things for you. Because I talked about like two specific sort of diverging themes around rejection. At the beginning of the video, I talked about, how it's sort of like a psychological, emotional thing within someone. And, if you're seeing rejection, it's because of insecurities or avoidance or escapism. Okay, so how, if it deals with those types of difficult self factors, how does rejection become something that's protecting? How do we add those two things together? It lies in themes of interpretation. So someone who is struggling with insecurity, avoidance, and escapism will interpret the universe trying to step in and help them as rejection, not as something that's helping. So this is where it connects together. This is where everything comes together, is in interpretation and how we choose to interpret certain things in our lives. We also get into pessimism here as well. Okay, this person doesn't want me. That means they're rejecting me. This doesn't mean that I have options now. This doesn't mean that I can go and find a better relationship, or that I'll have more time to work on my business, or that I'll have more time to really enjoy the company of myself. This means means that I'm being rejected, and this means that something is being taken from me. So I challenge you, as we're moving out of 2018 and towards 2019, to start to rethink themes of rejection, to start to rethink and reinterpret anything which you consider negative in your life to be. Okay, so you lose the job, or you see a person who has what you want and you don't have it, or you see that the person that you're with in the relationship isn't prioritizing you in the way that you feel like you need. Is this something that is rejection? Is this something that is ultimately taking something from me? Or is this the universe trying to clear out some space in my life so that I can finally do what I've needed to do?